Hello everyone, good day. I hope by God's grace you are all doing well. You are all fine. Welcome to Academic Showdown for Poly 213 Introduction to Public Administration. My name is Bafoiwa Joseph Ejapon, but as you all know, you can call me Nana Bafoiwa NDA. And I'm going to be your host for this particular recording session. I intentionally made this video to help us in our upcoming IE that we'll be having so that we can all prepare enough and get the better grades and give public administration a showdown as our primary goal dictates. Today we are going to talk about public policy, that is week 5 lecture. The lecturer made us know that he's going to set most of the questions from public policy. That is not the only place the questions are going to come from. It's going to come from all around, but we should pay much attention to public policy because we are going to see or meet most of them coming from that particular session. So I thought it was a need helping my other colleagues to also have a better understanding of what was being taught in class. So when we talk about public policy, we are diving straight into the lectures because we don't have a lot of time and I want to make it very short and brief so that you don't spend much time on studying only public policy, but I can go to other topics as well. So when we say public policy simply means anything a government chooses to do or not to do, the actions and inactions of a government. It could be negative or it could be positive, anything. So if the government chooses to go to IMF and take money, it's a public policy. If the government chooses to declare a war or not to declare a war, it is a what? It is a policy. So public policy is the theoretical construction of what the policy ought to be in the real world. That is for a policy cycle. Sorry, that is for policy cycle. But when we talk about public policy is anything the government chooses to do or not to do. The actions and inactions of the government is public policy. And I've given you several examples right now that if the government should adopt the e-levy or even the sporty bets, something that the government takes 10% tax, it is a public policy. If the government chooses not to work with any other country or international organizations, it's a public policy. Then therefore someone will say that, how is this public policy done? What is the construction of this public policy? How do we have a public policy? How can the government conclude that, yes, this is what we are doing? We are not going to IMF. We are implementing e-levy. And that will lead us to what? The policy cycle. The policy cycle. So when we talk about policy cycle, it helps us understand the composite of policy cycle, the construct, like how certain things are run before we have a policy. That is policy cycle. So the definition for policy cycle is it is a theoretical construction of what the policy ought to be in the real world. There are certain keywords we are not supposed to forget. It is what? Theoretical construction of what the policy ought to be in the real world. It shouldn't be only theoretical, that we can only explain them or implement them theoretically, like on sheets. But in the real world, in our day-to-day administration, we can't see it. That is why it's saying ought to be in the real world, which means we have to be able to see it. We have to be able to implement it in the real world. It has to work in the real world. It shouldn't be something that is working theoretically and we cannot apply it in our day-to-day administration. And we have the composite of policy cycle. And the first composite of policy cycle is what? Agenda setting. Agenda setting. Agenda setting may come from both internal and external actors. It may come from, when we talk about the internal actors, we are talking about our policymakers and other things, bureaucrats, civil servants, citizens, media. External actors, we could also talk about the IMF. It has to be serious, that needs attention from the government. So when we talk about agenda setting, for every problem to be recognized, agenda setting is all about recognizing the problem in the states. How is it affecting the people? That is all about agenda setting. So before a problem will be recognized by the state or by the government, then it means that it is serious. That needs the attention of the government. That is why we have two agenda settings. You have the systematic and the institution agenda setting. When we talk about the systematic, it refers to all the problems. All the problems in what? In the states. That is the systematic. But the institutional agenda setting is what? The most important ones. The ones that are serious, something that we need to treat it as soon as possible. We need to treat it ASAP. That needs the attention of the government as soon as possible, or it's going to destroy a lot of things, or it's going to what? Retard the development of the state. That is the institutional agenda setting. So, for example, the Akosombo Dam. You see, we've all heard about the Akosombo Dam, that there's abundance of water over there, and it may lead to flooding that will destroy homes and life and other things. People have to vacate from that area. Yes. So we also that our president, the vice president, they went there to go and evaluate things over there and see how they can solve that problem. These are certain things that needs the attention of what? Of the government. COVID-19, when COVID-19 came, we saw that our president was always updating us, helping us to all, so that all of us we can protect our lives and other things. They need the attention of the government so that the problem could be what? Resolved. Those things are the institutional, but the systematic refers to all the problems that we have. So your problem, your broken heart that you are having doesn't need the attention of the government right now. If your landlord is sacking you from the house, it doesn't need the attention of the government. If you wanted to eat banku and your wife gave you wole wonyo, it doesn't need the attention of the government. But the only thing that need the attention of the government is the problems that are coming from the institutional part. That is when the government needs to what? Needs to treat them as soon as possible. So that is all about agenda setting. So agenda setting is basically recognizing what? The problems, the recognition of the problems in the states that the government has to what? Has to take care about. But talking about this recognition, we also have some challenges or criticisms of what agenda setting. And it says that public managers must have the expertise and capacity to anticipate, identify, and act upon the specific circumstance as and when the opportunity presents itself. This is necessary because open policy windows are what are short-lived. I think this is self-explanatory to all of us, so we don't have to waste much time on it. And we can also talk about the actors of what agenda setting, that which people are the actors of what agenda setting, which people form the agenda setting, which people even recognize it and try to find solutions to the recognized problem in the state. So we have the policymakers, we have the president, we have the cabinet, we have the parliament, bureaucrats, ministers, we have government institutions, agencies, ministries, departments, we have the media, we have the social network, we have the civil society. These people are what? These are the people or the actors of agenda setting. They recognize the problem and what treats them as soon as possible in order to save life or protect the properties in the state. So the next point I'm going to talk about, or the next step in the policy cycle, is policy formulation. So when we talk about policy formulation, that is where the debates, discussions, and everything goes on over there. That is where the discussion by the government, like right now, we have recognized the problem. So what is the one best way to solve the problem? How are we going to solve the problem? Which people are we going to charge them to take care of that particular problem? That is for policy formulation. That is where they sit down and they debate on the problem and they bring ideas together that either we should do it this way or we should do it that way. So they bring out solution that will help the problem. And one thing about policy formulation is it needs policy legislation, or else implementation will suffer. Policy legislation is simply because it simply means sending that recognized problem to the parliament for several debates to be made on that particular problem, that this is the particular solution that we are having to this particular problem. So what do you think about it? How do you think we should do it? That is when they bring all these things together. And normally policy legislation talks about when we find these solutions, they normally become a law. Don't always recognize or see the problem to be the Akosombo Dam that I was talking about, or something that we see with our eyes. We can have economic clashes that will need policy formulation, or economic clashes that will be sent to agenda setting, whereby people sit down, stakeholders sit down to find solution to our economic clash so that we can get back to our normal stance in our economy. And normally when we do these things, when there are policy formulations, when they debate on them and bring solution, they normally make them laws. Like maybe we are going to increase tax from 1% to maybe 3%. It becomes a law until the constitution is amended. That is policy legislation. We know legislation is making a bill a law. The process of making a bill a law, there's several stages of making a bill a law. So policy legislation is giving its legitimacy. The legitimacy in solving that particular problem. That is policy legislation. Yeah, so basically that is all about policy formulation. And you also have characteristics of policy legislation by Jones in 1948. So it says that it needs not to be limited to one set of factors or actors, and it may proceed even without a clear definition of the policy problem. Two, formulation is usually done in a particular government institution, and that institution might become synonymous with the what? With the policy. It may occur without any support from inside or outside government for any proposal put forth. So policy formulation is basically debating, sitting down, planning about what? About the problem that has been recognized and needs the attention of the what? Of the government. That is all about policy formulation. Right now, agenda setting. We found our institutional agenda setting, and we know that we are solving this problem, COVID-19. How are we solving this COVID-19? Don't think that the president is the only person that will just come out and come and speak that, fellow Ghanaians, we have to put on our nose masks, we have to do this, we have to take in our vaccines and other things. No, there are other stakeholders that will sit down, debate on it, analyze and plan things, then give the final submission to him. Then he comes out to publish it. That's the whole thing. The next policy cycle is policy the adoption. The next policy cycle is sorry, I'm having some sore throat. I'm so sorry. Policy adoption. So the policy adoption is after we have debated about the recognized problem and the solutions and everything we plan over it, then we what? We adopt the one best way to solve that problem. So we've realized that COVID-19 is going to, or we are having economic clashes, and we have an affiliation with what? With the IMF, and they are there to help us in regard of how much we owe them and other things. So what is the one best way in doing that? Oh, we've debated on that. I think we have inadequate funds, and the International Monetary Fund is there to help us. So let's go to them, go and speak to them, plead on the nation's behalf to get some amount of money, come and work in order to what? To produce or stabilize our economy. That way, we have adopted that solution. Another example, COVID-19. COVID-19 came about, it was sent to agenda setting, the problem was recognized. There several debates went on. After the debate, there was the final submission that we all agreed on is the policy adoption. That is when we adopt that the only way we can fight COVID-19 is putting on our nose masks, washing our hands frequently, taking in our vaccines, social distance, those kind of things that came about that was we were being informed that if we do them, we are not going to be affected by COVID-19. These are the adoptions, the policy adoptions. That is when we do them. Then we've both adopted it. The fourth policy cycle. I want to make this recording brief because I guess we've all read the slides, we've attended lectures. So this recording is just going to be a brief recording. I'm not going into details because I want to make it brief so that when you are listening to it, you can also pay attention to other sessions as well. But there are some key things that I can never take it from you, that I'll always share them with you so that you get to what? You get to know them. Like a classic example, which people are the actors of agenda setting. It could be an examinable question. Mention three key actors in agenda setting. I've already mentioned them. We have the president, we have the civil servants, we have the media, we have the bureaucrats. Yes, they just list them. Pepe, now call baby, you know, be any answer. So the fourth stage is what? Policy implementation. After talking about agenda setting, recognizing the problem, debating on them, adopting the particular solution to solve the problem. If you don't implement them, that's all. If you don't implement them, it's a cost-90 way. We've wasted the hours sitting down trying to find a solution. That is when, for example, when you like a lady and you're always admiring the girl, you're not talking to the girl in your mind, you follow the girl, you don't tell the girl anything. Then you complete school and the girl goes. It is the cost-90 way. You couldn't even approach the girl to say hello. How will the girl know your intentions? And you know our Ghana girls too, in quotes, they don't normally move to guys, even though when they like you, they want you to come and tell them. So policy implementation is putting into action the intentions and the decisions of government. So these are the things that we've intended to do. So putting into action. Across Dam, there is overflow of water. We've decided to help the people. What are we doing? Yes, then we put it to action. We find places for the neighbors living around the place. They go and sit down. Right now, we work on the factory, how to drain some water from it and those kind of things. Those things are they putting into actions. And with policy implementation, specific people are assigned to specific tasks. We don't just give them to anyone to go and do it. We have expertise that helps in the putting into actions of the government's intentions and decisions. And policy implementation to resources are needed, because if you are putting into actions, when you are putting something into reality, you need resources. You might need money, you might need some natural resources depending on the solution you are trying to the problem you are trying to solve. But always you need money. Economic clashes, if you are putting into action your intention, we need money. That's why we went to the IMF. I don't know if it's the 18th time or the 19th time to go and take to go and borrow some money. I don't know if you people are getting what I'm trying to say, but with the policy implementation, it is the visible part of all of the policy cycle. That is where whatever has been discussed in the closed doors comes out. That is where, for example, if our bridge, let's say the interchange at Accra, yes, it has faults, cars are falling, and other things. It has gotten the attention of the government. They've sat down, they've formulated some policies, they've adopted some solutions. If they don't come out and come and put them in place, if they don't come out and come and reconstruct the bridges and other things, it is a cost-90 way. If you tell us that you were sitting inside there, you planned the whole thing, you are showing us evidence that this is the plan that you've made. Yes, you've made your plan. right now, what is the outcome? What is the end product? That is why I use the girl as an example. That yeah, you admire this girl, you are not telling the girl. The one of your friends move to the girl and go and talk to the girl, and the girl becomes your friend's own. You cannot go and fight your friend that this girl is your girl, so your friend should leave the girl for you. What shows that she's your girl? Did you go and talk to the girl? You can't tell us that you had that intention that you always had. No, no, no. That's not what we are trying to say. Policy implementation is what is the action part. It is the action part of the government. And we have some challenges of policy implementation, inadequate funds. Don't always say lack of funds. I'm sorry to say this, but I hear most of you saying it in class. When we talk about lack, it means there's zero, there's nothing there. But when we say inadequate, it means you have some, but it's not enough to complete what a specific task. So because a lack of funds, I say the whole Ghana, like in our past, we have zero what 0.00 in our account. And that is not true. So maybe inadequate funds and resources. That is when we don't have a lot of money to embark on developmental projects. Then we go and what? Seek for help from other international organizations, the World Bank, the International Monetary Funds, and other things. Yes, to help us do all these things. That's one of the what the major challenges of policy implementation, inadequate funds. So the final stage of the policy cycle is policy evaluation. The word evaluation should tell you everything. So right now the agenda setting has been made. Yes, policy formulation, policy adoption, policy implementation. Right now, what is the feedback? Have we been able to solve the problem? Or we still need to make some changes? We still need to make some corrections? And normally, the actions and inactions of the government is mostly influenced by what? The bureaucrats. The main function, listen to this, never forget it. The main function of the bureaucrats is to advise the government. And normally they bring the feedback. The government is there like producing. So the bureaucrats, they will go and find these problems. They'll bring it to the government. Government, we've seen this. This is how we have to solve it. We need this amount of money to go and solve it. The government will give it to them. They'll go and solve it. They can come to the government. We made some mistakes over here. We need additional this. That the government will give to. So they are advising the government on what? On some on some policies they have to what they have to adapt, they have to implement. So the main function of the bureaucrats is what is to advise the government of its actions and inactions. So policy what evaluation is all about critically analyzing, examining what we've done so far in the policy cycle. Is it okay for us, or we still need to add some additional solutions? And you see, when this policy evaluation, when they evaluate their solution that they've adapted so far, and they think it's not enough, then they go back to agenda setting. Then it comes to policy formulation. It comes to policy adoption. It comes to implementation. Then they'll re-evaluate it again. That is why it is a cycle. It doesn't end. After the evaluation, they found these mistakes. They've made their corrections. So how are we making the correction? How are we accepting this particular thing as a correction? So we send it to agenda setting and bring it to policy formulation, whereby we debate everything. Adoption, we find the one best way we bring it to implementation, where we bring it to actions in reality, then we evaluate it again if that correction really helped or not. And that is determined by the feedback. So that's all about the policy cycle. We have some actors in the policy evaluation. We have the formal actors in the policy evaluation process. We have the informal. So the formal are the politicians, the bureaucrats in government, departments, and agencies. Yes, these people are the what are the formal. We have the IMF, the World Bank. They are the formal in policy what analysis or policy evaluation. And the informal, we have the protests, we have the what the boycott, we have demonstrations, we have research institutions, we have civil society organizations, we have the media. They evaluate whatever was being done informally. And the formal people are the people who are mostly involved in the agenda setting, who are involved in the policy adoption, policy formulation, implementation, and evaluation. And the informal, we have the media, research institutions, demonstration, boycott, strike actions, yes, protest. They are the what? The informal people. And please check also take notice of the types of policy evaluation. We have administrative evaluation, judicial evaluation, and political evaluation. They all explain themselves: administrative level, judicial level, and political evaluation level. They are all self-explanatory. So someone can also say that since all that I've said are the advantages of policy cycle, we should also know that it has its disadvantages. Policy cycle has structured the performance of government to be linear, but in the real world, it is not linear. You see, the policy cycle is talking about agenda setting stage one, stage two, policy formulation, stage three, policy adoption, stage four, policy implementation, stage five, policy evaluation. But normally, in the ideal world, that is not how we solve most of our problems. It is not always linear. It is difficult to solve a problem in that what? In that way. That is the most disadvantage of policy cycle. One disadvantage of policy cycle that it is not we don't see it in the real world. That is why the definition of policy cycle is what theoretical construction of what a policy cycle ought to be in the real world, what it ought to be. Theoretically, yes, this is how a policy is being made. But in the ideal world, it's not in that way. And another disadvantage is there are no indications as to who and what drives the policy from one stage to the other and why. For instance, what forces drivers move a policy from adoption to implementation and why? I hope you all get it. Yes, that is also one disadvantage of what policy cycle. So I'm going to end the class because you all have to prepare for another sense. Sorry, I'm saying I because this thing is going to be posted on our YouTube channel. It is for all of us. It's not for only me. And the level hundreds that will be coming when they move to 200s, they are also going to use this same recording in their personal studies. And I'm sorry, when you are listening, you'll be hearing I don't know when you begin to engage this particular recording, but it doesn't mean that you should be having I at that particular point in time. But as of now, the live recording is made particularly or necessarily because we have I this coming Sunday, which is tomorrow. That is why I've made it brief for all of us. All the best in your I just get to the examination center 30 minutes before time. It is 10 a.m. So you can get there at 9:30. Then you hang around, you find your place that you are going to sit. Don't forget your ID card. Send in your ID card. And I wish you all the best. I hope God help us and make us get better grades as we've always wished for. Thank you so much for listening to this recording. I wish you all the best. This is Academic Showdown powered by Nana Balfour. Thank you all. Have a good day. Bye. Have a good